Now to talk about the most controversial of transfers that Alabama landed. Alabama signed the transfer point guard, former McDonald's All American from the University of Auburn, Aden Holloway. Holloway was really good last season. He had his ups and downs, as many freshmen do, but you could definitely tell at moments the skill and talent shine through. I think that Nate Oates betting on Aden Holloway is Nate Oates looking at what Aden Holloway was able to do in AAU, what Aden Holloway was able to do at times at Auburn, and saying, I think that I have the ability to turn this guy into a better shooter than his stats showed his season at Auburn. His numbers at Auburn were just 30% from three, 31% from the field, averaged 7 points. But he did have a, 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. So an elite assist to turnover ratio, which is awesome with how Alabama likes to play. But the shooting numbers leave some to be desired. When you look at those numbers, I think what Nate Oates is doing is a few things. I think he's looking at a guy that Holloway mentioned in his recruitment and right after he signed with Alabama, that he felt like he wasn't given the freedom to do what he needed to do or wanted to do in Pearl's system. And it is very clear for anybody that follows or pays attention to basketball that Bruce Pearl and Nate Oates have two very different styles on offense. They're very, very different. Nate Oates is a much more free-flowing NBA style system that wants to play in transition, that wants to put the guard in the ball's hands, play through the pick and roll, high ball screens, just wants to play quickly and see if they can penetrate and get open shots. And if an open shot is available, take the open shot. Whereas Bruce Pearl plays much more of a set-oriented system. When I look at the ability of Aden Holloway, the game that immediately jumps out in my mind is the opening game at Baylor. Auburn plays Baylor on the 7th of November last season to open the season. And, it was the game to watch. And he ends up shooting, 4 for 8 from three. So 50% from three, as well as, he only shoots 40% from the field. He shoots 50% from three and has 6 assists, right? So has 6 assists and has, and shoots 50% from three. And you saw the guy that Auburn recruited. Aden Holloway, during AAU ball, was looked at as one of the better shooters coming out of the AAU circuit. Yet that's not what you saw at Auburn. Nate is making a bet, and it is a bet that I think I agree with, that if Aden Holloway is not made to run specific sets and is instead able to play a read and react style of offense where there are rules in place and there are plays in place even that are set up if we're going to run this play and the point guard or the guy with the ball makes this move, and based on the reaction of the 5-man or the 4-man or whoever they're trying to read off of, based on the reaction of that person, I'm going to pass to this guy who's then going to make this cut or this, whatever the play is. And it's much more of a in the flow offense, right? It's not a walk the ball up the court and, you move here and you move here and that person goes there and now we have a back cut. No, it is we're going in the flow and we're reading off of a certain guy. Think about it with the football terms, right? If you're playing an option, you're reading the end man, right? If he collapses down, you make the pitch. If he takes the running back, you run the ball. It's triple option, right? Or speed option. Same kind of thing, right? The basketball version of that is the play, whatever, whoever the person you're reading off of on this specific play is, we're reading off of, the guy in the dunker spot. Cool. So this guy does this. If the dunker spot follows him, then we're going to do this or we're going to do that, right? Whatever the play ends up being, it just allows the point guard to have a set of rules in mind and then just play basketball, right? They're not trying to tell other people where to be. They're not trying to, control every aspect and every second of the game. They're just playing basketball. And I think that Nate's bet is, hey, if I can get him back to playing basketball, I can open up the shooter that showed his ability in college, right? So I talked about that Baylor game. The next game, they played Southeast Louisiana. He was 3 from 8 from 3, so 37.5%. The next game, he ends up shooting against Notre Dame 4 for 5 from 3, 80%. Later in the season, in December, they play Indiana on Hoopsgiving, 5 for 8 for 62%. Plays USC, 57%, right? He has the ability, and you saw early in the season especially, much more early in the season than late in the season, where Aden was taking and making three-point shots. And Aden mentioned that he felt like he was removed a little bit out of the offense as the season went on. And I think that the comments by Bruce Pearl in some of the post-game interviews would echo that. There were comments made by Bruce Pearl, hey, we need some guys to stop taking threes. That specific comment was made. And if I look at the shot chart by Aden, my gut would say it probably was said around the end of February. Or maybe beginning of February. Because after February after the 31st. After January 31st, there was only one game that Aden Holloway took more than 5 threes. Took more than 3 threes, actually. There was only one game he took more than 3 threes. And it was Georgia, and he was 5 for 8. So it was a standpoint where Bruce Pearl was removing the ball out of his shooter's hand. That is something that I can unequivocally say Nate Oates will not do. You saw games last season where Latrell Wrightsell passed up a shot, and at the next dead ball, Nate Oates removed him from the game and was screaming at him on the sideline for passing up open shots. And then he would be asked about it in the postgame, and he would say, yeah, he's one of the best shooters I've ever coached. Why would you be passing up an open shot? Take the shot. Nate Oates is of the mindset, and the data, agrees with this, that if you pass up an open shot, typically the shot you get is worse. Right? Even if you miss that open shot, your expected percentage of points off of that shot is typically going to be better than the shot you actually got at the end of the clock, but because of what you passed up, right? So if you have an open shot, even if it's at 24 seconds, take the shot, right? That's what, in normal playing scenario, right? If you're under 30 seconds or into the game scenarios, that changes, right? But in the normal playing of the game, take the shot. And Nate is very specific on that because he's looked at the math. They have analytics companies that help them out, and they know that this player, and based on this shot with, this amount of how open they are or whatever the case at this location, this is their expected shot. So take it. And that's just that level of confidence that he gives to his guards is a big reason why Phylon wanted to play for us, which we'll talk about him in the incoming freshman podcast that I do. but it's also a reason that Aden Holloway wanted to play for us. Aden Holloway reached out to Bama as much as Alabama reached out to Holloway. From what we heard, Holloway was very high on Bama because of what Nate does to his guards. And it's a thing that everyone can see, right? You see how Mark Sears plays. You see how Latrell Wrightsville plays. You see how Aaron Estrada played. Go back prior. You see how Javon Quinterly played. You see how all these guys play. That inspires guards to want to play for Nate Oates. And I think that is the reason why Aden Holloway decided, yes, I'm going to come play for Nate Oates in Alabama. And I would expect when Sears comes back that Aden Holloway will be our backup point guard and a guy that's averaging a 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, that's considered one of the better shooters coming out of AAU, that had the ability and had multiple games shooting over 60% last season, and absolutely has that ability, is going to be a very big addition to the team next season. Having a McDonald's All-American to come off the bench that has that ability to score and that ability to shoot will be huge. So I really think that Aden Holloway is going to be a very big addition to the team.